Hello class, today we're going to start our next chapter, chapter number 10, tobacco. And we're going to start off by discussing some statistics and some facts related to tobacco. Follow that up with a short discussion on some of the harmful chemicals that are found in tobacco. And then finish the lesson up with the harmful effects that the tobacco habit has on your body. Let's start off with some tobacco facts and statistics. A single puff of tobacco smoke contains roughly about 4,000 chemicals. Just one single puff. And we know that at least 43 of those chemicals are what we call carcinogens, cancer-causing substances. Now, in the United States alone, tobacco-related deaths average approximately 400,000 deaths per year, which makes tobacco use the single most preventable cause of disease, death, and disability in the United States. Now, if you put all those together, that's more than all the deaths due to heroin, murder, crack, cocaine, AIDS, fire, car accidents, and alcohol combined. As we just said, tobacco and tobacco smoke contain more than 4,000 chemicals. Now, we're going to focus on the main three and discuss some of the harmful effects they have on the body. The first one we're going to discuss is nicotine. Now, as many of you know, nicotine is the addictive chemical that's found in tobacco. All right? It's what causes the user to become addicted and triggers the cravings that they experience when their blood levels get low in nicotine. Now, in lesson number 3, we're going to discuss tolerance and how the body develops a tolerance and the role that the cravings play in that. Some of the other effects that nicotine has on the body: it increases heart rate, and it increases blood pressure. And because of this, nicotine is what we call a stimulant. It speeds up the processes of your central nervous system. Nicotine is also responsible for the release of the brain chemical dopamine, which is responsible for feelings of pleasure. It increases the release of adrenaline, which helps to increase heart rate. And it also constricts the blood vessels of users. As you see over here to the right, I have two examples of blood vessels. I have a normal blood vessel, and if you look at the diameter of that normal blood vessel, and then compare it to the blood vessel of the nicotine user. So this is the nicotine blood vessel. User takes in nicotine. What happens is their blood vessels then constrict or become more narrow, and the heart has to work harder to pump the same amount of blood through those constricted blood vessels. So my question to you is, the risk of what disease of the circulatory system is increased due to the constriction of these blood vessels? Okay, research that and bring your answers to class. The second of the three main harmful substances that we're going to discuss is tar. Now, tar is the thick, dark liquid that is produced when tobacco burns. And what happens is, when a tobacco user inhales the smoke from burning tobacco, the tar that is produced is then inhaled and it forms a coating inside the lungs. Okay? And what happens is, it forms that sticky coating on your bronchi, bronchioles, and your alveoli, which kind of diminishes the ability of you to take in oxygen and absorb oxygen in your bloodstream, which in turn will then lead to diseases such as lung cancer and emphysema. If you look at the picture that I have on the screen here, you'll see how that tar forms that sticky coating inside the lungs of a tobacco user. Now, I have a question down here at the bottom. We said that burning tobacco contains at least 43 carcinogens. Now, is tar one of these 43 known carcinogens? Bring your answer to class. Our third main harmful substance we're going to talk about is carbon monoxide. Now, not carbon dioxide, which is a waste product we exhale. This is carbon monoxide, which you can see is a colorless, odorless, poisonous gas that is produced when tobacco burns. Now, what happens is, in tobacco users, this carbon monoxide will actually compete with oxygen in the user's bloodstream. And for some reason, and we don't know why, our red blood cells seem to absorb this carbon monoxide more easily than it does the oxygen molecule. Okay, as you can see down here, our red blood cells seem to absorb that carbon monoxide molecule at a rate of 200 times more easily than an oxygen molecule. And what happens is the blood cells become saturated with this carbon monoxide and carry that carbon monoxide to your vital organs instead of oxygen. So my question to you is, because of this, what does this carbon monoxide prevent the body from getting enough of? Okay? And bring your answer to class. Moving on to some of the harmful effects that tobacco habit has on the body, and we're going to start with your respiratory system. The first disease we're going to talk about is emphysema. Now, emphysema happens when the alveoli in the tobacco user harden and disintegrate. This is almost entirely caused by smoking, and there is no known cure for this. Now, if you look to the right, I have a little picture for comparison. Okay, and you can see your alveoli here. I have one alveoli with emphysema and one of a normal alveoli. You notice these alveoli are nice and bubbly. They absorb oxygen a lot more easily. All right, and these ones have basically become rendered useless. The absorption of oxygen is not as easy. All right, and it doesn't take as much oxygen into your bloodstream. The second disease is lung cancer, which is uncontrolled growth of cells that reproduce abnormally in the lungs. Now, if a person develops lung cancer, some common treatments include surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy, and we'll talk a little bit more about those in class and what they are. But the important thing here is early detection with lung cancer. Lung cancer is a very aggressive, lethal form of cancer. It spreads very rapidly. Okay, so survival rates increase with early detection. The earlier a person detects lung cancer, the greater their chance of survival, because it does spread so rapidly. The third disease of the lungs is chronic bronchitis, which is an inflammation and swelling of the passageways, the airways inside the body, such as your bronchi and your bronchioles. What happens is, as a person smokes tobacco, the continuing chemicals and irritating smoke start to inflame and irritate your passageways. And a person might develop a heavy bark-like cough, which is known as the smoker's cough. And this is a warning sign that these passageways are narrowing. Now, at the same time, your lungs will secrete a sticky mucus, which is their way of dealing with that irritating smoke and chemicals. If this continues, what happens is, you can see over here to the right in the diagram, you can see your bronchi and your bronchioles. Here's your normal bronchiole. Okay, you can see the diameter of it. And here's your constricted bronchi or bronchioles. They become more narrow. All right? And this puts a lot of strain on your alveoli. And if this continues, your alveoli can basically collapse. And if that happens, if your alveoli collapse, all right, that can actually cause emphysema as well. Now, how about your mouth and your digestive system? What do the effects of tobacco use have on those areas? Well, first, tobacco use increases your risk of cavities and gum disease. You can see here I've included a picture that's none too pretty. What happens is the tobacco will turn your teeth a yellowish, brownish color, lead to tooth decay. As you can see here, we got nice yellow, brownish teeth, a lot of decay in there. Okay, and it can also lead to something called halitosis. For those of you who don't know what halitosis is, that's just a fancy term for bad breath. Tobacco use will also increase the risk of cancers of the mouth, the throat, the stomach, the tongue, the gums, all right, as a result of whether it's smoking itself or whether it's use of smokeless tobacco. Smokeless tobacco can cause stomach ulcers to develop, which are basically open sores in the lining of the stomach. Okay. So my question is, well, how do you think this happens? How can the use of smokeless tobacco cause open sores on the stomach lining? Okay, research that answer and bring that answer to class. Tobacco use will also dull the taste buds in its users. Okay, so another question for you to look up. What do tobacco users put on their food to make it taste better? Bring that answer to class. Tobacco use, smokeless tobacco use, can also lead to a condition called leukoplakia. Okay, and I've included a picture down here. Basically what leukoplakia is a white leathery patch that forms either on the tongue, the gum, the inside of the lip of the smokeless tobacco user. It's not cancer yet, but it's a pre-cancer warning sign that says, hey, something's up here, something's wrong. If you continue, cancer very well likely might develop. I have one picture here that I haven't discussed yet, because I want to see if you can figure out what this condition is. Okay. Look at the picture. What is this condition caused by tobacco smoke? See if you can figure that out and bring that answer to class. How about your circulatory system? What effect does tobacco use have on your circulatory system? Now, if you remember earlier in the lesson, I asked you what disease of your circulatory system is the risk of is increased by tobacco use. Well, here's your answer. Okay, your answer is heart disease. And why is that? First of all, what does nicotine do to the heart rate? We've already said that nicotine increases the heart rate of its users. What does nicotine do to the blood vessels? We've already said that nicotine will constrict blood vessels, okay, which in turn restricts blood flow. And what does this do to your blood pressure? Well, it increases blood pressure. All right, so if you look at these over here, what you see is nicotine having that effect of that constricted blood vessel, all right, making them more narrow. And you have your normal blood flow within your normal blood vessel, and you have your restricted blood flow within your constricted blood vessel due to nicotine. Now what also happens is tobacco use helps to increase the buildup of plaque within the walls of the blood vessel. Okay, here you have your normal blood vessel. Here you have the blood vessel of a tobacco user who has an increased amount of plaque built up inside, which is making that blood vessel more narrow. So what you have is a constricted, more narrow space for your blood to flow through. So the heart is having to work harder in order to pump the same amount of blood through those blood vessels. Eventually that's going to wear the heart out. The heart may give out, may create heart disease, heart attack, or stroke.